Hi guys, welcome. Hope you're doing okay. Things are going well with my family. We're all healthy, but I hope that everything is okay with you guys. Sorry, I have to whisper right now. I just put my kids down to bed and I don't want to wake them up. So anyway, well, let me explain what's going on today really briefly with this activity, and then I'll let you get onto your way. So we're going to be using this equation, Newton's law of gravitation, and your task is going to be to build a spreadsheet that's going to calculate the variables below. So this is somewhat like the Hardy-Weinberg calculator that we built for the life science unit, but in this case we have a couple variables that we'll be working with. The force of gravity. This is not a variable, this is a constant g. I'll get into more of that in a second. The mass of our first object, the mass of our second object, and the distance between them. So the spreadsheet that you're going to make is going to have three tables. One will be to calculate the force of g, one will be to calculate the distance between the objects, and one will be for an unknown mass of one of the objects. All right, a brief note about this. So because the force of gravity is it can be so big and so small, we have to use scientific notation because a lot of the numbers that we're working with are just absolutely huge. So for example, the mass of Earth is this many kilograms. And something that's really small would be like the percentage of me getting the coronavirus. Really, really tiny percent. I'm totally locked up in my house. I'm basically like Survivor Man. Anyway, so when you're writing these numbers out, there's a lot of possibility for making mistakes. They're cumbersome, there's a lot of zeros, and if you're entering them into a calculator, you're pretty likely to drop a zero somewhere. So instead of having to write out a 597 followed by a whole bunch of zeros or a whole bunch of zeros followed by another number, we'll use scientific notation. I want to make sure that you guys are also seeing that this is a really large number and this is a really, really small number, but they're both positive numbers. We're not going to have any negative numbers, but you will see a negative sign. So for example, this number is the same thing as 5.97 times 10 to the 24th. What that means is that if you start here at the comma and you count you move the decimal place 24 times, that's how many digits there are right there. And likewise, if you start here, this number, 0.000000000 all the way over here, that is the same thing as 1.99 times 10 to the negative 22nd. And if you start at this decimal place and go over 22 digits, you'll end up right between the 1 and the 9, which is where that decimal point is there. So that's how we write scientific notation. Excel and or Google Sheets doesn't use this times 10 notation. Instead, it just uses the letter E, which means big exponent. So 5.97 times 10 to the 24th is the equivalent, it's the exact same thing as 5.97E plus 24. And 1.99 times 10 to the negative 22 is the same thing as 1.99e negative 22. It's the exact same thing, but because we're working in sheets, we're going to be forced to use this notation. But it means the exact same thing as this one. And one more thing that I should point out is that when you have a positive exponent, that means that the number is really big. And when you have a negative exponent, that means the number is really, really small. It doesn't mean the number is negative, just that the number itself is very small. Okay, I wanted to talk about the gravitational constant again because this is an example of one of the numbers that's really, really small. Basically, when you're finding the ratio between the masses and the distance, you need to multiply that ratio by a gravitational constant, which is 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11th. So it's a decimal point followed by 10 zeros, then 667. It's a very, very tiny number, and it's going to come into play quite a bit in our formula. Okay, so right before, last thing I want to mention are a couple of tips when using the Excel sheet. So let me show you what the final product is going to look like. So this is the template, I suppose. So this is what your end product will, or this is what you're starting off with, and you're going to input values into these yellow boxes, and you're going to write code in the blue boxes. So when you're writing the code, so if you look here, you can see that here's my gravitational constant, 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11th. And that's how you literally write it into Excel, 6.67 e negative 11. You can see here that I actually wrote in the standard scientific notation form, 5.97 times 10 to the 24th, but Google Sheets automatically changes it to using that e notation instead. So we'll be doing that. So when you write it in, so for example, if you wanted to write the mass of the Earth, you would literally write 5.97 E 24. And it will actually add the positive sign too for you. And if you're writing G, well, let me get to that in a second. Let's say we have a distance, hold on a second, let's go here. All right, using E instead of 10, perfect, so I showed that. When coding, you also have to use the equal sign to let the computer know that you're writing code. So let's say we have a distance of 5 meters, and we want to square that distance. So I need to first type the equal sign, and then I'm going to reference the cell that the distance is in, which is D17, and then I'm going to raise it to the second power, and that will be 25. I'll show you again over here. If I wanted to, let's say I have, let's go over here. Let's say I have 1 and 1, and then to add them together, I need to write equals K8 plus L8, and then it would be 2. And now if I change this, it just automatically updates. So don't forget to write the equal sign when you're writing in the information. You can always edit your formulas in the formula bar up here, and you can see there's the equal sign. All right, what's the last tip? Oh yes, okay, when you are ready to start following directions and making your spreadsheet, access this Excel template, and you're going to go to File and make a copy. Once you've made a copy, change the student name in parentheses to your own name and share it with me so that I can follow how you're doing and give you some tips to make sure that you're doing it correctly. Okay, thanks so much, guys. Best of luck, and please let me know if you have any issues.